on to their topicality arguments. They offered a different definition of the identical or exact. They were basically talking about the exact point of law, and that was their definition. And our violation was that we were going. Our plan sought to do something other than the exact rule of law, overturning the exact rule of law. But actually, we are doing exactly that. We're overruling Curran, and the direct result of overruling Curran and the basis for overruling Curran, our reason to overrule is cosmopolitanism, and that directly solves for one of our harms, the state of exception. And on to the standards. They say it explodes the topic, but they had enough to run 2 diseds, 2 critiques, and a partridge in a pear tree. Basically, they ran plenty of negative arguments, so clearly it's not taking anything from them. And the extra T that it goes beyond the resolution, but we're doing exactly what the resolution is to affirm. We're overruling a case, and the direct effect of that is cosmopolitanism. When the courts overrule the Curran case and adopt international law, this is all through the Supreme Court, all through the overruling of the Curran decision, then we promote cosmopolitanism within the U.S. government and further around the world. And their violation about which you remarked that which judge will vote where, that's not really what our job is. So we fiat our plan. Our job is not to prove that the plan can pass, but what the plan can do once it's passed. So we're going to fiat that. And onto their extraordinary resolution that the U.S. is holding off on extraordinary renditions now. Adverse court rulings will cause an increase, and the U.S. is conservativeness. We also, again, it's not whether or not we will pass the plan. It's that what the effects of the plan are. So they're not actually debating the resolution. They're debating. I don't even know what they're debating. But so we're going to fiat the plan again. And on to the business DA. Their second card on the business DA says judicial predictability and consistency on the part of blah, 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 confidence. Basically, business confidence is only affirmed through judicial predictability. And I'm going to say that this is not unique. Business confidence is not entirely dependent on simply the Supreme Court. It's actually part of the status quo that it will rise and fall with the fortunes of various things. It's not just the Supreme Court. So it's not a reason to link this business confidence DA to us. And also their internal link on the business DA of economic recessions will eventually lead to global war and extinction. This, I think, is ridiculous because we had a recession in '93. We've had recessions since then in the early 2000s, and we haven't had nuclear war as a result. The country has recovered. We haven't been involved in massive nuclear war, as they say, so there's no impact. And on to their terror disad. This terror disad bites right into our state of exception. They're basically denying rights to detainees to further the efforts of the war. And this is exactly what we're talking about in our state of exception. So I'd like you to group all those together and cross-apply our argument and 05 cards. Basically, they're creating the state of exception by fostering this kind of thought. Increasing rights undermines the war on terror. It's ridiculous to think that we shouldn't allow rights that we give to each other just to this group of people because we're having a war on them. This is why we signed the Geneva Convention. It's not just because we're in a war with them that we can do whatever we want. And ultimately, it devalues all of us. When we devalue one person, it devalues all of us. And that is the threat of the state of exception. That it's not just going to be terrorists being thrown into a prison in Cuba. It's going to be all of us. Anyone who chooses to go against the power structure will be sucked up into the state of exception. They'll be said to be political opponents, and they'll be labeled terrorists, and they'll be found up in the Guantanamo Bay. And also, it's just, the language in this is incredible. Increase in the rights, kill the war on terror. Increase in rights to detainees, kill the war on terror. I think I think we can have an effective war without dehumanizing people, and even if we can't, the risk of dehumanization, the risk of us supporting dehumanization is too great for us to try to gain an edge in the war on terror, which is not going well anyway, by denying people rights. On to their critique of Aghavan. And they say, in the Daily 04 card, it is better understood as practices not through the law, as they say of Aghavan. He says not through the law, and they say this is a problem. And they say it is better understood as practices on the part of the human beings interacting within social forms. And this is exactly what we're talking about. We state the state of exception as our harm, and we solve for it with cosmopolitanism. It's interactions within social forms by humans. This is exactly what cosmopolitanism is. People being able to express themselves without being killed, without being dehumanized. And onto their victimization critique. Actually, the Hamdan case decreed there should be. No one has been released on this decision, and it hasn't done enough. We need to overturn ex parte curing so that we can actually do something about the Guantanamo Bay. And overturning curing will instantly release all these terrorists, so there will be instant solution to this problem. And onto their solvency arguments. And I have some cards. They say Bush will ignore all attempts, and I have a card to apply to that. Presidents seldom openly defy particular decisions by the court, O'Brien 05. The court has often been the focus of presidential campaigns and power structures, but presidents seldom openly defy particular decisions by the court. Presidential defiance is perhaps symbolized by the following famous remark attributed to Andrew Jackson. John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it. Jackson's refusal to enforce the decision in Worcester versus Virginia, which denied state courts jurisdiction over crimes committed on Indian lands, is in fact simply left enforcement problems up to the courts and legislatures. During the Civil War, ordered his military commanders to refuse to obey. In major confrontations, presidents generally yield to the court. Nixon complied with the ruling in New York Times Co. versus United States, which was struck down as prior restraint on freedom of the press, an injunction against the publication of the Pentagon Papers, a top-secret report detailing the history of America's involvement in Vietnam. Then in 1974, he submitted to the court's decision in United States versus Nixon, ordering the release of White House tape recordings pertinent to the trial of the former Attorney General John Mitchell and other presidential assistants for conspiracy and obstruction of justice.
I have a couple questions real quick. Do you believe that detainees are currently being dehumanized?
Yes.
Why?
Because their rights, the rights that we give to people through our own civil courts are being denied to them. They don't have habeas corpus. They're being jailed without.
What's the definition of dehumanization?
Dehumanization. It's when you do something, as explained through cosmopolitanism, that you have to think of the person as less than human. When you push a button and nuke 30,000 people, you're not thinking about them as your friends and families. You're thinking about them as just numbers.
Okay, stop. You said on a Hamdan card, that we need to overrule Kieran, and that you're advocating that that's key to solving. And then you say that we advocate for the instant release of all the terrorists in Guantanamo Bay.
That is what we will do once we overthrow the Kieran decision. We will instantly release every terrorist in Guantanamo Bay, or terrorists, as they call them.
So let me ask you a question. If we captured Osama bin Laden right now, and your plan gets passed tomorrow, and you're going to release him once expatriate.
Exactly. Killing someone is not the answer to solving your problem.
Okay,
with
are
them.
we
In the history of the United States, in the history of the world,
our problems,
people
please,
have
stop.
never been named.
Is the military commissions killing Osama bin Laden if we just take him into...
If putting them into prison and denying them any rights and having them jailed without any
Have you
kind
read
of...
the hearing decision? The expert hearing decision?
No.
Okay, well, do you know if cosmopolitan is mentioned anywhere in the decision?
No, but we will
Okay, do you
overrule
know
it, and the
what-
means to
excuse
overrule
me,
it will
do you
be
know
our
what-
reason
excuse me,
overruling
do you know what-
cosmopolitan.
Excuse me, do you know what the Supreme Court actually said for the basis of why they
Go
why
ahead
they
and
decided
tell
that
me.
way? You don't know?
Go ahead and tell.
No, I'm asking you if you know.
No, I don't.
No? Okay, what's the
What was
purpose
the-
of debate?
What?
What's the purpose of debate?
To affirm the resolution,
To
to have
debate about
clash.
what's the best plan, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we need to look at what happens when the plan is passed, right?
That's right. That's
And
what
we
we're
look
going
at the
for.
effects.
Yes,
To decide if it's good or bad.
exactly. Yes, that's right.
Okay, can you, how much time left?
50.
Okay, can you explain quick, how your first advantage there?
The state of exception
Yeah.
that's already happening within the United States basically is when you can label anybody that is not within the dominant power structure, anybody who challenges the dominant power structure as a terrorist, a convenient label they can put on anybody that they don't like, and
So-
then they are within the power of the president. They
Okay,
have
so you're not really
none of the rights
solving
that
for
we
this?
fall
You're
for,
just-
none of our
this is
traditional
just a harm.
upheld rights.
This is just something that's bad in the present.
That's right. It's bad historically. It's bad whenever. It's bad in
Okay, and then your
future, now.
cosmopolitan actually solves for that?
Yes,
And can
talking
you
through.
explain how it solves for that quick?
Sure. If we want to challenge the state of exception, we need to stop thinking of people as others, and therefore we need to talk to them. We need to spur dialogue,
So
like we're doing right
cosmopolitan
now.
is mistalking to people.
Yes, it's spurring
And-
dialogue.
and
It's
overruling the
not
current decision
killing
makes
someone
us
because
talk.
they said something you don't
And
like.
overruling the current decision makes us talk.
Overruling the current decision and instilling us with international law is the way to spur cosmopolitanism within
Yes,
the
please.
United States.